Maria Bartholdi joined at the video wall by Luis Scott-Vargas. We just saw Kentaro Yamamoto's draft. Now we're going to watch Mike Sigrist. Here's a look at the pod. We've got Sigrist here, 2 to the right of Kentaro Yamamoto. So we're going to see what he could put together. Kentaro drafting just an absolutely insane green-based deck. So we'll see if Mike Sigrist, if the cards fell in his favor as well. 2015 Player of the Year and team member on Channel Fireball Ice. All right, here we go. Pack 1 for Mike Sigrist. He's kind of paging through the cards here. We've got a Blur of Blades sort of pulled to the front of this pack. Ooh, a Fervent Paincaster as well. Oh, we've got Oketra's Last Mercy in here. He seems to be favoring the Paincaster. How do you feel about this card, Luis?
The card has actually underperformed a little bit. He's also looking at the Tenacious Hunter there, which is a pretty solid option if you like green. Red and green are 2 of the better colors, so I'm not surprised that Sigrist has narrowed it down, especially since Paincaster and the Tenacious Hunter are 2 of the better cards. So it looks like he might be thinking about a Dauntless Aven as well.
He's going to choose the Paincaster here, starting things off with the red card. And I remember you said red was one of the stronger colors in the set, in your opinion.
I think it is, and whether you favor red or green is a little bit more of a personal choice, but I think that most players would identify those as 2 of the more desirable colors to be in. All
right, we've got a Harrier Naga in green here for him, as well as an Eternal of Harsh Truths pulled to the front, a Sunscourge Champion. We've got a Kenris Scrapper, which would be in his colors as well, which is a fine little 3-drop.
It's a little early to be locked too hard into colors, but given that Kenris Scrapper is on par with a lot of these other cards, it wouldn't be surprising to me if he took it. Sunscourge Champion's quite strong, as is Eternal of Harsh Truths. So one of these 3-drops is likely making its way into his pile here, and looks like it's the Kenris Scrapper.
Yeah, Kenris Scrapper. It's nice to start off your draft with 2 picks of the same color, if you can keep it going that way. We'll see what he picks up here in pack 3. All right, let's take a look here. We've got Oketra's Avenger, which is a little 2-drop that a lot of people really like. We've got Firebrand Archer as well as an Inferno Jet pulled to the front as well, which I don't know how you feel about that card. Manticore Eternal as well. Of these cards that he's kind of piecing through here, which ones stand out to you?
Oketra's Avenger is one of the least replaceable because it's a very high quality 2-drop. Firebrand Archer is a solid card. You kind of want to be in a blue-red spells deck to really maximize it though. And by taking Oketra's Avenger, Sigrist is really signaling that he wants to be in an aggressive red-white deck.
Yeah, aggressive red-white was kind of one of the hallmark decks of Amonkhet. Do you feel that it's still as strong in Hour of Devastation?
It's gotten a little weaker. There are fewer packs of the great Amonkhet cards like Gustwalker and the cartouches, but it still is very much a draftable deck.
Not a lot going on in his colors in this pack. We've got a Thorned Malok pulled to the front there in red. I don't really see a lot of other red or white in this pack, but a substantial amount of green, which we know is going around the table towards Yamamoto. What are you thinking if you're in his seat right now?
I'd be looking to take a Hope Tender here. I think it's the best card, and you don't have a strong card in your colors. You also aren't really locked into any particular color. 2 red cards, 1 white card. That does not mean that Sigrist is but in any stretch committed.
All right, Hope Tender was the pick there for Sigrist. Lethal Sting in this pack as well, which is a pretty strong card. Survivor's Encampment, if he's thinking about playing multiple colors, potentially. Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs is a card that I like, I don't know, maybe too much. What are you thinking here?
I do like Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs. I don't think it combines all that well with the cards he already has. I'd also be looking at the fact that Lethal Sting and Merciless Eternal are there, signifying that black might be open.
All right, well, he's going to take a Survivor's Encampment, kind of leaving his options open to play more colors in the future. And like you said, playing multiple colors is definitely a thing that you can do in this format, although it usually relies on green as your base.
And the cards that Sigrist has so far don't particularly lend themselves to splashing. So he's in a somewhat difficult spot. I would not be thrilled to start out with this sequence of cards.
All right, Harrier Naga is what Sigrist has pulled to the front here. There you'd see a Desert of the True, Life Goes On, Granitic Titan, and he's just going to pick up the Naga, which seems to be the strongest card.
It is, and that's leaning Sigrist towards playing green pretty heavily at this point. He's got Hope Tender and Harrier Naga, as well as potentially another Harrier Naga here.
All right, yeah, there's another Harrier Naga, an Oasis Naturalist in the pack, as well as another Survivor's Encampment. And the Naturalist is a card that I've just seen completely overperform in this format.
It is good, and it actually looks like that's what he's going to end up taking. it does lean you towards a slightly higher curve deck. So Hope Tender does lead you that way too. They're both ramp cards. So it looks like Sigrist might be kind of easing into a ramp strategy, though that's going to leave some of his earlier picks kind of on the wayside.
Yeah, things drying up here a little bit for him. We've got a Defiant Kenra pulled to the front of this pack. Razaketh's right still in the pack as well, which, I don't know, just an avoid. How do you like that card?
I don't think it's particularly good. It's a pretty sweet one, but more importantly, there's 3 black cards and 3 white cards, so it looks like those 2 colors are open, even if all those cards are not like that desirable. But I think at this point, Sigrist has kind of committed to not playing those colors as much, as he's pretty firmly into green. And what he pairs it with is just really going to depend on what he opens in pack 2.
Sure, another Harrier Naga is the pickup there for Sigrist as we wind down the picks here on the first pack of the first draft. Another Harrier Naga. How many Harrier Nagas is too many?
He's already kind of bordering there, because playing one on turn 3 is good. Playing one on turn 4 is not bad. Playing one on turn 5 or 6, you really at that point want to be settling into your rampaging hippos and whatnot.
All right, the last few picks here for Sigrist. We've got some red cards still in there, Thorned Malak, and an Inferno Jet looks to be what he's going to pick up. How do you like that card so far?
I've actually been pretty happy with Inferno Jet. You're going to cycle it more often than you're going to cast it, but when you do cast it, it's just frequently the best card in your deck. It kills your opponent. So you're seeing Sigrist. I don't think he's committed to red, but he's leaning towards that. If he opens a good red card, it's just going to be pretty locked into red. But let's say he opens something like Angel of Condemnation. He could just be green-white. He could even just first pick like a great black card if that's what he opens as well.
And this is, at least for me, a pretty good study on reading the signals and staying open past your first picks, because his first picks in this draft were kind of leaning him in a different direction than his deck ended up going.
He went into green a little late, but he went into green exactly when it became apparent that green was open. First with the Hope Tender, then a couple Harrier Nagas. So even though Sigrist isn't firmly committed, the fact that he has 3 good red cards means, and he got a pretty late Inferno Jet, means I think he's got a tendency towards that. He's only saw the 1 white card plus some mediocre like zombies cards, so I don't think he'd be as excited to be green-white here, but he's definitely going to be green.
If he ends up being green-red, what is that deck trying to do?
There's a couple different versions of it. He can play the lower curve version that has a lot of the aggressive 2 and 3 drops from both sets, and then finish things off with Inferno Jet or Pump Spells, or you can play a slightly higher curve version with Oasis Ritualist and Hope Tender and curve into 6s and 7s, your Greater Sandworms and Rampaging Hippos. As
far as Survivor's Encampment goes, how important is that deck if you're looking, or is that card if you're looking to play that kind of deck that's playing 4 or 5 colors?
I like it more as a desert than I do a mana fixer. It can be decent if you're strong in 1 color and then are splashing 2 other colors, but in like a evenly split 2-color deck, I don't like it all that much.
All right, let's take a look here at pack number 2, what Sigrist is going to open. What are you most hoping for if you're in his seat, Luis?
The funny thing is, you're still probably hoping to open something like Scorpion God, even though it's not even your colors, just like or Nicole Bolas. Like, those cards are just so much stronger than everything else.
All right, let's take a peek here at Sigrist's second pack. Ooh, there's a fine card to open. And on color, Samut is in his pack here.
Yeah, and Samut is a solid pickup. He already is leaning towards red-green, certainly green, and more likely to be red than anything else. The Struggle to Survive, also a very strong.
Oh, yes.
It's 2 and a red, kill any creature. It is pretty good. The Samut gives you a pretty good game plan, especially if you can go Harrier Naga into Samut and then have a pretty good defensive structure set up. So he's going to take one of those 2 cards. Whether he leans the Planeswalker or the unconditional removal spell, we'll find out shortly. I suppose I would lean towards taking Samut, but I think it's very close.
Interesting. See, most people just slam that Samut, and he does in the end, but Struggle to Survive, what a card. I mean, people play it, you don't even need to cast the second half.
No, but the second half actually does more than you might think. You can get rid of eternalized creatures. You can actually get rid of a god if you have the timing right.
Puncturing Blow, by the way, a notable card in that pack as well. We'll see where that ends up at the table. Fervent Paincaster here, and Stalwart in the pack, Ronus' Stalwart, which is a nice little 2-drop that people have been liking. How do you feel about this card, Luis?
I like Ronus' Stalwart. It's a very good aggressive card. Paincaster is pretty nice because double Paincaster and Samut kind of adds up the pings, and Sigrist can be in a situation where he can really pressure his opponents, even 2 and 3 toughness creatures. One reason he might lean towards the stalwart here, he's got 3 Harrier Nagas.
Yeah.
He's got a Fervent Paintcaster. He's got a Kenra Scrapper. So he has a lot of 3 drops already.
Yeah, and it's important to keep that in mind as cards are coming around the table. What does your curve look like? Do you need to lower it? Do you need to raise it? And if you're playing one of these drafts where you can't see what you've picked, sometimes it's hard to keep it in your head. So it's definitely a talent as well. All right, Ronus's Last Stand. We saw this card come up in Yamamoto's draft as well. A pretty powerful 2-drop, but is the cost too high, do you think, if you're playing it later in the game?
No, I think the card is fantastic. It's insanely good on turn 2, and I think it's still very playable on turn 6 or 7. So that's a great pickup for Sigrist, and I'm sure he's happy to take that here.
Oh, yeah, I would be feeling really happy if I was in a seat right now.
I was surprised when Yamamoto did not take it, actually.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
Curious if he just evaluates that card very differently.
All right, Sigrist kind of firmly in green-red at this point, it looks like.
It would take a very substantial set of cards to get Sigrist off of red-green, I think. It's possible, but it's pretty unlikely.
We've got a Feral Prowler pulled to the front here, as well as a Kindled Fury. How do you feel about either of these cards?
No, they're both somewhat filler-ish. One reason to go with Kindled Fury over Feral Prowler is that Sigrist is, I think, leaning aggressive. He's got, Ronus' Stalwart. He's got a bunch of Harrier Nagas. He doesn't have actually that much high-end, so I'm not actually looking at the Oasis Ritualist and thinking it's great in his deck. I think he's more likely to be like a 2 to 4 drop red-green aggro deck if the cards cooperate.
All right, we've got a Sidewinder Naga in this pack, as well as a Manticore Eternal, another Oasis Naturalist, as well as making its way into Sigrist's hands. What do you like here?
I like the Manticore Eternal. Sigrist doesn't have very many payoffs at that mana cost, and it really does pressure the opponent, especially with tricks like Kindled Fury. When you're forced to attack, your opponent often is just going to assume you don't have a trick, and then Kindled Fury can really be great.
I want to ask about tricks in this set because they seem to be pretty good in Amonkhet. How do you feel how do you value them now?
Depending on how aggressive you are, they can be pretty good. The more aggressive you are, the better they are because you're forcing your opponent to block more often, and that's when tricks tend to be the best.
Rampaging Hippo. Well, if you want to go big, here's the card to go big with. We've also got a Desert in this pack, which he doesn't have a lot of Desert Matter synergies in his deck as of yet. What are you looking to pick when that's the case?
I think one reason to take the Desert here is that Sigrist is actually not playing that high curve of a deck, so being able to cycle excess lands is powerful, but Rampaging Hippo is just one of the premier finishers in the set.
Yeah, it's just big. It's got trample. Keyword big. All right, let's take a look here as he finishes out his last few picks here on Pack 2. We've got a Dagger of the Worthy. A Dune Diviner is there at the back of the pack as well. How do you like this Dagger?
I think that Dagger of the Worthy is solid, especially when you have high toughness creatures or first strike creatures. So Harrier Naga does do a pretty good job of wearing a dagger.
Snake with a knife.
Not sure how that works mechanically, but it in fact is effective.
Ramunap Ruins. All right, we're playing some standard now potentially.
Yeah, certainly one of the best cards in the set for constructed, and a very good finisher in an aggressive deck. It's a good reason to play other deserts. It's pretty low cost. It doesn't come into play tapped, and you're not going to have to pay the life to it very often.
So he's got a Survivor's Encampment. Do you just play that even if you're not planning to use it for fixing just because you have a card like Ramunap Ruins?
At this point, I think he'd be leaning towards yes. Also, now that he's picked up Gilded Ceridon there, having 2 deserts in his deck kind of works out nicely, though I think at this point he wishes he had taken the Desert of the Fervent over the Rampaging Hippo.
Last few picks here for Sigrist. Still some cards coming around in his colors. Frontline Devastator, that's a good pickup for him, I would say. I like that card.
Oh, that is a very nice late pickup there. It's a good way to pressure the opponent. He's got a lot of 3/3s, but if you can pick up another trick or two, he can force through a good amount of damage.
Another Dagger of the Worthy in this pack as well. Life Goes On, not something he's probably looking to pick up, so he's going to take a Granitic Titan. Yeah,
that's kind of a worse Rampaging Hippo, but still a playable 6.
Got to take that foil plains. Nope, he's just going to pass it on. Final 2 picks here for Sigrist in the first draft Pro Tour R of Devastation. Defiant Kenra, are you playing this in this deck?
It's going to depend on how his curve shakes out. I wouldn't be surprised if he did, though. He has 2 now, and if he needs some 2-drops, if you cast it on turn 2, it does its job. The problem with that card, of course, is that it drops off in the late game.
How do you feel if you're Sigrist right now going into Pack 3?
Yeah, I feel okay. I feel like my deck is probably slightly above average. You're in a decent spot. I think your colors are open. I think that picking up Ronus' Last Stand is actually pretty good, too. Now, I feel maybe a little better than that. This is like a 7 out of 10. like, Sigrist can't be, I think, overly excited because he really needs more 2-drops. If he picks up 3 2-drops in this pack, I think his deck's going to be great.
Okay.
I do think that having Samut, Fervent Paincaster, and Ruinous' Last Stand means he does have some power, but he didn't pick up any Open Fires or Ambuscades. He's going to want to pick up something like Cartouche of Strength in order to interact with the opponent, because right now his deck is just a lot of creatures and not a whole lot of interaction. That Kindled Fury is actually looking good.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. So what is on your list if you're thinking about Pack 3 coming into Amonkhet?
2-drops and Cartouches of Strength mostly. It's, those kind of cards. Even something like Electrify. Obviously, if you can get a Magma Spray, that's great. But for the most part, Sigrist just needs ways to interact with his opponent. He's got a lot of stats. Doesn't have a lot of ways to really stop his opponent from doing anything good.
Have you drafted a green-red deck in the format yet that you've really been a fan of?
Yeah, I think if you have a good curve, there's basically 2 different versions. There's this version, which is looking like the lower curve, more aggressive version, and then there's the deck that has more ramp spells and more high end.
Life goes on there. You see it at the front. Not going to make the cut?
No. So what he's doing with that is that's the blocker. That's so if someone glances over by accident, they don't see one of your good.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Trust me, that's like a time-honored tradition. You've got to have the blocker. It's always like some bad card. Like if you watch these players draft, they're frequently going to have that there.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't know they did that. Insights here from the Pro Tour top 8.
Yeah,
draft.
you don't learn those things till you play at the PT, but that's actually something that happens.
All right, here we go. We're getting ready for Pack 3, going back to Amonkhet here for Mike Sigrist. Let's see what he opens. Okay. Wow. Now, this is exactly what you're looking to pick up. Look, there's also a Trial of Zeal, though. What do you go with?
I like Samut, Voice of the Tested, or sorry, Voice of Dissent. She is just so damaging. She does 6 points of damage right away because she has haste. She has flash, so she's going to eat one of your opponent's creatures a lot of the time.
Wow.
I guess if you open Samut in every pack, then your deck's going to be pretty good. Though I don't know if you're allowed to play both at the same time.
No, it's just like a flavor fail?
Yeah, mechanically you are, but I would say it is a little funny having both on the board.
Oh, that is so cool. Samut.deck here for Mike Sigrist. And as you said, still looking to pick up removal, but that card is not too shabby. Just wins games out of absolutely nowhere, and people just don't expect it. They don't see it coming. Okay, let's take a look here at what he's going to pick up. We've got a Hooded Brawler in the pack, as well as a Bloodlust Insider if he wants to get out fast and early. Blood Rage Brawler as well towards the front, and a Dual Land in his color as well. What do you like here, Luis?
I think I like the Blood Rage Brawler. The cost is real. Discarding a card is certainly a penalty, but Sigrist needs 2-drops. That is a very meaty 2-drop, and this is the kind of card that punishes your opponent for a slow start.
Yeah, he's definitely got some 2-drops that make your opponent really have to react, and Ruinous' Last Stand and Blood Rage Brawler. Putting the pressure on early, which is exactly what you mentioned he needs to be picking up in this pack.
And I think we're finding out how Kentaro Yamamoto is able to draft a good ramp deck is that Sigrist is just not looking at a lot of the same cards that Kentaro would be, like that Decimator Beetle that finds his way into his deck.
Exactly. And there we go, Magma Spray, just like you said. That's exactly what he's looking to pick up here.
Yeah, these first 3 picks would make me very happy if I were Sigrist. I think that my estimation of the deck has gone up dramatically.
Yeah, it's just looking great. This is fantastic when you get to see 2 really amazing decks drafted at our feature table here. And I love that you pointed that out about, they're both in green, but they're both drafting entirely different synergies.
The one thing that's interesting to keep in mind too is that the strength of the table, it's all relative. You can have a deck that looks really good, but if the card pool is very, very strong, then your deck isn't necessarily that much better than the average deck at the table. I do think that this deck looks very good, but it's possible that the decks around Sigrist are also very strong. Sure. So once you look at all 8 decks, you have a better picture. Another 2-drop here is exactly what Sigrist wants. And picking up Magma Spray, 2 2-drops, and a Bomb, 5-drop, that is how he wanted to start this pack.
Do you put any planes in your deck for Samut?
No, I don't think you have to worry about it. You have a Survivor's Encampment you could use to untap other creatures, but that ability is basically optional. You don't really need it for Samut to be good.
All right, I see a Bloodlust Insider hiding in the back of this pack. A Mouth to Feed. Marshall, there's a card for you.
Yeah, Mouth to Feed, a very good pickup. It's like a Harrier Naga, but it also eventually draws you a card or two, especially with all the Harrier Nagas in the deck already.
So good in his deck.
Then Feed is going to be able to kind of live up to its name.
Get the Hippo tokens ready.
And here you see Sigrist just sitting there, picking up all these red and green cards, and it's very clear that both colors are open.
Right.
I think
Yes.
he is in the right place, and you don't always get rewarded for being in the right place, but here he is being rewarded for that, and that's always, I mean, that's kind of why you draft, is you hope to figure out the colors you're supposed to be in and get rewarded for that.
All right, we've got a Manticore of the Gauntlet, some painted bluffs up there at the front of the pack, as well as a Manglehorn. What are you interested in?
I like the Manticore of the Gauntlet here. Even a low curve aggro deck is still going to want a couple 5s just because you do have to play 16, 17 lands and you're going to get to 5 mana. Manticore of the Gauntlet's one of the better ones.
And it does give you a little bit of late game reach, you know, and he's got Ramunap runes and a couple of deserts. Could come into play. Another Manglehorn in this pack, as well as a Minotaur Sure Shot.
Yeah, not a whole lot here that is exciting. I mean, we're getting into the tail end of things. Like Quarry Hauler is also like a moderate playable. Like these are all cards that Sigrist certainly could play, but doesn't have a whole lot of synergies. He has an Exemplar of Strength to go with counters. Quarry Hauler can put another counter on Somewhat the Tested, so you can up, you know, surprise ultimate or something like that. So that's a kind of neat little interaction.
All right, let's take a look. Initiate's Companion here, rounding out some of the picks for Sigrist. That's what he's going to take. A perfectly fine little 2-drop.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Initiate's Companion. And this pack has gone swimmingly. I think if he had picked up like one Electrify, it would have been great, but
Right.
I really don't think that he can have any complaints, not about the pack or the deck. I think he's in a very good spot here. And here you see these late Gift of Paradise that I don't think it's that likely that Sigrist even plays it, but I mean, he might take it because he's not going to play the other cards at this point. But those are the kind of cards that the ramp deck wants that Sigrist is, at this point, not really drafting.
All right, let's take a look at his final few picks here. Just kind of rounding out the pack. Another Minotaur Sure Shot, which is pretty good if your opponent's playing a lot of flyers. So good to just have that as an option, I think. I love his poker face. You cannot tell that he's got a really great deck.
Yeah, none of these players are really going to reveal how happy they are or unhappy they are during drafting here.
Haze of Pollen, the pick up there for Sigrist. And just the final 3 packs, he's just going to take a Serpent here. Ketra's name and Bloodlust Insider. Going to take a Bloodlust Insider. Probably not going to make the cut in this kind of deck.
I think that depending on how many playables you have, he might play it, but the fact that he was thinking about Ketra's name as a hate draft means that he's probably not very excited about it one way or the other.
All right, Luis, if you're Sigrist, how are you feeling right now? What grade do you give this deck?
I would give this deck probably like an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's quite good, maybe 8 out of 10, and I would be very happy with it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Luis. We'll be back after these messages.